The massive alien ship appeared over Earth on a Tuesday morning, blocking out the sun across 3 time zones. Admiral Zexathara stood on the bridge of the Eternal Harmony, watching the blue planet rotate slowly beneath them. His 4 arms moved gracefully across the control panels as he prepared for what should be a routine diplomatic mission. In 3,000 years of galactic expansion, the Galactic Coalition had never failed to bring a new species into their fold. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering stretching 50 kilometers from bow to stern. Its crystalline hull reflected the light of Sol in brilliant rainbow patterns that danced across Earth's atmosphere. Inside, representatives from 47 different species worked together in perfect harmony, each contributing their unique abilities to the greater good of galactic civilization. On Earth, the phones started ringing at exactly 9 in the morning Eastern Time. President Jake Morrison was in the middle of his daily briefing when Secretary of Defense Lisa Carter burst through the doors of the Oval Office. Her face was pale and her hands shook slightly as she held up her secure communication device. "Sir, we need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "NORAD is tracking something impossible." President Morrison looked up from his morning reports. At 55, he had served his country for over 30 years, first as a Navy officer, then as a senator, and now as the leader of the free world. He had dealt with international crises, natural disasters, and political scandals, but nothing had prepared him for what came next. Chief of Staff Ben Wright joined them moments later, followed by the heads of NASA, the CIA, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Situation Room filled quickly as the most powerful people in America gathered to witness humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. The transmission came through every communication system on Earth simultaneously. Radio stations, television networks, internet servers, and even emergency broadcast systems carried the same message in perfect English, delivered by a voice that sounded almost human but carried an otherworldly quality that made everyone who heard it feel small and insignificant. "Greetings, people of Earth," the voice began. "I am Admiral Zexathara of the Catherian Empire, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Coalition. We come in peace, offering your species the greatest opportunity in your planet's history. President." Morrison listened carefully as the alien admiral explained their purpose. The coalition represented the combined wisdom and technology of 47 advanced civilizations. They had been watching Earth for several decades, waiting for humanity to reach a level of development that qualified them for membership in the galactic community. The offer was breathtaking in its scope. The coalition possessed medical technology that could extend human lifespan to 400 years, eliminating most diseases and physical ailments that plagued humanity. They had mastered faster-than-light travel, allowing instant communication and transportation across vast distances. Their trade networks spanned thousands of worlds, offering resources and knowledge beyond Earth's wildest dreams. "Your species shows great promise," Admiral Zexathara continued. "Your creativity and adaptability are remarkable, even by galactic standards. We wish to share our knowledge with you, to help you take your rightful place among the stars." The terms seemed simple enough. Humanity would need to surrender their military forces, as war was considered a primitive concept among civilized species. Earth would adopt coalition law, which had maintained peace across the galaxy for millennia. A galactic oversight council would help guide humanity through the transition period, ensuring that Earth's integration proceeded smoothly. In return, humans would gain access to technologies that would transform their world overnight. Poverty would become extinct, as matter replicators provided unlimited resources. Environmental damage would be reversed using advanced terraforming techniques. Humanity would join a peaceful community of species working together for the common good of all sentient life. Secretary Carter leaned forward in her chair, studying the holographic display that had appeared in the center of the room. The coalition ship was broadcasting detailed schematics of their offer, showing gleaming cities on distant worlds where different species lived and worked together in perfect harmony. "It's everything we've ever dreamed of," she whispered. "No more war, no more hunger, no more death from disease." General Mike Torres, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was less enthusiastic. "What about our sovereignty?" he asked. "What happens to human culture, human government, human freedom?" The alien admiral seemed to anticipate this concern. "Your unique human perspectives will be preserved and celebrated within the coalition framework. Many species have maintained their cultural identities while embracing the benefits of galactic citizenship. The Andromedan poets still compose their epic ballads, the Centauri engineers continue to design magnificent structures, and the vegan philosophers pursue their quest for universal truth." President Morrison asked the question that everyone was thinking. "What if we refuse?" There was a long pause before Admiral Zexathara responded. "Isolation is always an option, though it has proven unfortunate for other species. The galaxy is vast and dangerous for those who face it alone. Without coalition protection and technology, most isolated worlds eventually stagnate or fall victim to natural disasters, resource depletion, or hostile forces beyond their ability to handle." The transmission ended with a formal invitation to begin negotiations. Coalition representatives would remain in Earth orbit for 72 hours, waiting for humanity's response. They expressed confidence that Earth's leaders would make the logical choice and accept membership in the galactic community. The Situation Room fell silent as the holographic display faded away. Outside, news networks were already broadcasting. Footage of the massive alien ship and social media exploded with speculation, fear, and excitement. The world watched and waited for their leaders to make the most important decision in human history. President Morrison stood up slowly, walking to the window that overlooked the White House lawn. Protesters and supporters were already gathering. Outside the gates, their chants mixing together in a cacophony of human voices demanding action. "Sir?" Ben Wright asked quietly. "What are your initial thoughts?" The president turned back to face his advisors, his expression thoughtful but determined. "Get me a secure line to every world leader. We need to discuss this as a planet, not as individual nations." Over the next 72 hours, humanity debated, argued, and soul-searched like never before. Scientists marveled at the technological possibilities, while philosophers worried about the loss of human identity. Religious leaders struggled to understand humanity's place in a vast galactic community, while military commanders questioned the wisdom of complete disarmament. On Friday morning, President Morrison returned to the Situation Room with the collective decision of Earth's leadership. The alien ship had moved closer to the planet, its presence now visible to the naked eye from anywhere on the night side of Earth. The response transmission was brief and polite, delivered in President Morrison's calm, measured voice that had reassured Americans through countless crises. "Admiral Zexathara, on behalf of the people of Earth, I want to thank you for your generous offer and the honor you have shown us by considering humanity worthy of coalition membership. After careful consideration and extensive consultation with leaders around the world, we have reached our decision." He paused, knowing that his next words would change the course of human history forever. "We respectfully decline your offer. Humanity chooses to remain independent and develop at our own pace. We hope this does not preclude future friendship between our species." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the coalition delegation in stunned silence. In 3,000 years of expansion, no species had ever rejected their first offer. 6 months had passed since the alien ship disappeared from Earth's orbit, but the world had not forgotten their visitors. Chancellor Vorth of the Trade Federation stood in the observation deck of his vessel, watching Earth grow larger as they approached for the second time. His tentacles moved nervously as he reviewed the enhanced offer that surely no species could refuse. The coalition leadership had been shocked by humanity's rejection. In emergency sessions across a dozen worlds, they had debated what went wrong. Some suggested the humans had not understood the magnitude of what they were being offered. Others believed Earth's leaders needed more time to convince their population. Chancellor Vorth was certain that a better proposal would solve the problem. On Earth, the past 6 months had been a period of unprecedented change. President Jake Morrison had used the alien visit to unite the world's nations in a way that no crisis had ever achieved. The United Nations had been restructured into the Earth Defense Council, with representatives from every nation working together to prepare for the aliens' return. Admiral Susan Blake stood in the command center of the newly constructed Space Defense Command facility in Colorado. The former Navy officer had been chosen to lead humanity's response to potential alien threats. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored screens showing satellite feeds, radar sweeps, and telescope data from observatories around the world. "They're back," reported Lieutenant Colonel Pete Harrison from his station. "Same energy signature as before, but the ship is different, bigger." General Mike Torres joined Admiral Blake at the central display table. The grizzled veteran had spent the last 6 months overseeing the rapid expansion of Earth's military capabilities. "How much bigger?" he asked. "Twice the size of the first one," Harrison replied. "And they're not alone. We're detecting at least 12 smaller vessels in formation." Dr. Amy Johnson hurried into the command center carrying a tablet filled with sensor data. The brilliant physicist had been leading the Advanced Research Division's efforts to understand alien technology based on the scans they had taken during the first visit. "The energy patterns are more complex this time," she reported. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies, including some we've never seen before." The alien fleet took up position in high Earth orbit, their ships arranged in a perfect geometric pattern that seemed designed to demonstrate their superior organization and technology. The largest vessel, a gleaming silver construct that resembled a massive crystal, positioned itself directly above the International Space Station. The transmission began at exactly noon Greenwich Mean Time, reaching every communication system on Earth just as it had 6 months earlier. This time, however, the message was accompanied by detailed holographic displays that appeared in major cities around the world, showing marvels of galactic civilization that took the breath away from everyone who witnessed them. "People of Earth," Chancellor Vorth began, his voice carrying a tone of patient authority that suggested he was accustomed to being obeyed. "We return with a proposal that addresses the concerns raised during our previous visit. The Coalition has heard your desire for independence and respects your species' unique perspective." The new offer was staggering in its scope. The aliens were now proposing unlimited energy technology that would end Earth's dependence on fossil fuels forever. They offered terraforming capabilities that could transform Mars and Venus into garden worlds within a generation. Most remarkably, they were willing to grant humans positions of authority within the coalition government, allowing Earth to help guide galactic policy. In the White House Situation Room, President Morrison listened carefully to every word. Beside him sat Secretary of Defense Lisa Carter, who had spent the last 6 months coordinating with military leaders around the world. Chief of Staff Ben Wright took detailed notes, knowing that every nuance of this conversation would be analyzed for years to come. "Your species has demonstrated remarkable ingenuity during our absence," Chancellor Vorth continued. "Our long-range sensors have detected significant technological advancement on your world. We are impressed by your rapid progress and believe this confirms our assessment that humanity belongs among the stars." The holographic displays showed coalition worlds where multiple species worked together in massive cities that floated among the clouds or sat on the ocean floors. Space stations the size of small moons housed billions of beings from dozens of different worlds. The technology was so advanced it seemed like magic to human observers. "We offer not just membership, but partnership," the Chancellor explained. "Humans would serve on the Coalition Council, helping to shape policies that affect thousands of worlds. Your unique perspectives on conflict resolution and resource management would be valued contributions to our civilization." Admiral Blake watched the displays with professional interest, while her staff took detailed scans of everything the aliens showed them. The past 6 months had been spent reverse engineering technology based on the faintest traces left behind by the first alien visit. Every piece of data was precious. The price remains reasonable, Chancellor Vorth continued. Full integration into coalition law and government, the peaceful dissolution of your military forces, and acceptance of galactic oversight during the transition period. In return, humanity gains immortality, unlimited resources, and the wisdom of ages. Dr. Johnson leaned over to whisper to Admiral Blake, "Those energy readings are incredible. If we could harness even a fraction of that power, we could revolutionize everything from transportation to manufacturing." General Torres was less impressed. "They're trying to buy us with pretty pictures and promises," he muttered. "But notice, they still want us to give up our weapons and our freedom." The alien chancellor seemed to sense resistance and decided to add weight to his argument. "We must caution against the path of isolation," he said, his tone becoming more serious. "Look at the Zorathi Empire, once a proud and independent species. They refused coalition membership 50 years ago, choosing to develop alone. Today, their worlds are silent, their civilization extinct. The galaxy is dangerous for those who face it without friends." President Morrison stood up slowly, knowing that his response would once again shape humanity's future. The alien offer was even more tempting than before, and he could see the hunger in the eyes of his advisors as they contemplated the wonders being offered. Around the world, billions of people watched their screens as their leader prepared to respond. The debate had raged for 6 months, but polls consistently showed that most humans supported their government's cautious approach to alien contact. "Chancellor Vorth," President Morrison began, his voice carrying the weight of speaking for an entire species. "We are honored by your return and grateful for the enhanced offer you present today. The technologies and opportunities you describe are beyond our current imagination." He paused, letting the words hang in the air before continuing. "However, after careful consideration and extensive consultation with the people of Earth, our answer remains the same. We respectfully decline your offer." The silence that followed was deafening. On the alien ship, Chancellor Vorth's tentacles stopped moving entirely as he processed what he had just heard. His advisors exchanged glances of disbelief. No species in recorded galactic history had ever refused a second offer from the coalition. "We understand the risks of independence," President Morrison continued. "We know the galaxy can be dangerous, but we believe that freedom, even with its challenges, is preferable to security that comes at the cost of our autonomy." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the coalition fleet hanging motionless above Earth. For the first time in his long career, Chancellor Vorth found himself without words. The humans had done the impossible again, and he had no idea how to report this failure to the Coalition Council. As the alien ships began to withdraw from Earth orbit, they left behind something they had never left before: surveillance probes, designed to monitor human development. The Coalition needed to understand how this primitive species continued to defy every principle of galactic civilization. 1 year after the second visit, the largest alien fleet in Coalition history emerged from hyperspace near Earth. Overlord Krenthal himself commanded the massive armada from his flagship, a vessel so enormous it could be seen with the naked eye from Earth's surface. The ancient being had ruled the Coalition for over 2,000 years and had never personally visited a prospective member world before. The fleet stretched across space like a metallic constellation, with hundreds of ships representing every major species in the Coalition. The message was clear. This was humanity's final chance to join galactic civilization peacefully. Overlord Krenthal stood in his command chamber, his crystalline form pulsing with light as he contemplated the small blue world that had caused such unprecedented disruption to the natural order. On Earth, the changes from the past year were remarkable. Colonel Pete Harrison walked through the corridors of Luna Base, humanity's first permanent settlement beyond Earth. The Moon facility had been constructed in record time using technology reverse-engineered from alien probe fragments left behind during the previous visits. Through the observation windows, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black of space. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system," reported Sergeant Roy Davis from the Communications Center. The young technician had been monitoring deep space sensors for months, waiting for the aliens' inevitable return. Dr. Kate Sullivan looked up from her quantum computer array, her latest breakthrough in faster-than-light communication technology. The brilliant scientist had made incredible advances by studying the alien surveillance probes that had been secretly watching Earth. "The energy patterns are off the charts," she said. "This fleet is at least 10 times larger than anything we've seen before." Back on Earth, President Jake Morrison stood in the newly expanded Situation Room beneath the White House. The past year had seen unprecedented cooperation between nations as humanity prepared for the aliens' return. Admiral Susan Blake coordinated with military leaders from dozens of countries, while General Mike Torres oversaw the construction of orbital defense platforms around Earth and Mars. The transmission that came from the alien fleet was unlike any previous communication. Overlord Krenthal's voice carried the weight of millennia, speaking with the authority of someone who had shaped the destiny of countless civilizations. The holographic displays that accompanied his words showed wonders that surpassed even the previous offers. "People of Earth," the ancient being began, "I am Overlord Krenthal, Supreme Leader of the Galactic Coalition. I have come personally to offer your species the greatest gift in the history of your world." The new proposal was beyond anything humanity could have imagined. The Coalition was offering access to the Great Library, a repository of knowledge from thousands of civilizations spanning millions of years. They presented immortality treatments that would allow humans to live forever without aging or disease. Most incredibly, they offered to transfer all of Earth's population to perfect worlds specifically terraformed for human habitation. "Your species would skip millennia of technological development," Overlord Krenthal explained. "In a single generation, humanity would advance from a single world species to masters of dozens of star systems. Your children would inherit the wisdom of ages and the power to shape the galaxy itself." The holographic displays showed human-like beings living in paradise, worlds where weather was always perfect, where food grew without effort, and where death from natural causes was unknown. Cities floated among the clouds while their inhabitants pursued art, philosophy, and scientific research without the burden of survival concerns. Admiral Blake watched the displays while monitoring reports from Captain Roy Davis, who now commanded humanity's first faster-than-light scout ship. The vessel was crude compared to alien technology, but represented humanity's determination to develop their own capabilities. "Their offer is incredible," she admitted to President Morrison during a brief communication break. Dr. Sullivan had been analyzing the alien transmissions with her team of scientists. "The quantum resonance patterns suggest their technology is based on principles we're only beginning to understand," she reported. "If we could access their knowledge, we could advance human science by thousands of years overnight." But there was something different about this visit. Overlord Krenthal's tone carried an edge that had been absent from previous communications. The ancient leader's patience was clearly wearing thin as he addressed Earth's continued resistance. "We have monitored your development during the past year," he continued. "Your progress is remarkable but ultimately futile. No species can advance in isolation at the pace required to survive in the modern galaxy. The technologies you are attempting to develop took us millennia to perfect, and you are trying to achieve them in mere years." The alien leader's words carried a warning that made everyone in the Situation Room uneasy. "The galaxy is not empty, humans of Earth. There are forces in the darkness between stars that view developing species as resources to be harvested. Pirates, slavers, and worse things hunt worlds like yours. Only coalition membership provides protection from these threats." President Morrison listened carefully to every word while reviewing reports from Director Alex Turner, who led Project Prometheus, humanity's secret defensive development program. Engineer Nancy Rodriguez had been working around the clock to construct new orbital platforms, while Commander Tim Johnson trained pilots for Earth's growing space fleet. "This is our final offer," Overlord Krenthal declared, his voice taking on a tone of absolute authority. "Join the coalition within one Earth year, or we will be forced to implement alternative measures for your protection. The laws of galactic civilization are clear. No developing species may be allowed to attract the attention of hostile forces." The holographic displays shifted to show the destruction of worlds that had remained isolated too long. Empty cities stood as monuments to civilizations that had fallen to unknown enemies. Overlord Krenthal's message was unmistakable. Join willingly or be forced to join for the greater good. "We do not wish to compel your membership," the ancient being continued, "but we cannot allow Earth to become a beacon for the dark forces that prowl the galaxy. Your rapid technological development has already attracted attention from entities we prefer not to name." The transmission ended with a formal ultimatum. Earth had exactly 1 year to accept coalition membership. If humanity continued to refuse, the coalition would implement forced integration protocols for the protection of both Earth and the greater galactic community. No exceptions would be made. As the massive alien fleet withdrew to the edge of the solar system, they left behind more than surveillance probes this time. Advanced scanning arrays positioned throughout the system began detailed analysis of Earth's defensive capabilities, mapping every satellite, every military installation, and every technological advancement humanity had achieved. The aliens were preparing for the possibility that they might need to use force for the first time in their long history of expansion. What they discovered in their scans, however, would challenge everything they thought they knew about technological development and the nature of civilization itself. On Earth, President Morrison addressed the world's leaders in an emergency session. The ultimatum had been delivered, and humanity faced the most important decision in their history. Join the galactic community and surrender their independence, or stand alone against forces they could barely comprehend. "We have 1 year to prepare," he told the assembled representatives. "Whatever we decide, we need to be ready for the consequences." The countdown to humanity's final choice had begun, and the entire galaxy watched to see whether Earth would finally submit to the inevitable or continue their impossible defiance of the natural order. The year of ultimatum passed faster than anyone expected. Director Alex Turner stood in the main control room of Project Prometheus, watching as the final defense systems came online around Earth. The massive underground facility housed humanity's most advanced technology, developed in secret during the months following Overlord Krenthal's threat. Around him, hundreds of technicians worked at stations monitoring systems that would have been impossible to imagine just 2 years earlier. Engineer. Nancy Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead as she completed the final calibrations on the orbital defense platforms. The structures surrounding Earth looked like metallic flowers blooming in space, their energy cores pulsing with power that rivaled small stars. "All platforms report green across the board," she announced to the command center. "We're as ready as we're going to be." Commander Tim Johnson reviewed the pilot assignments for humanity's new fleet of defensive ships. The vessels were sleek and fast, built using principles learned from studying alien technology, but improved with uniquely human innovations. "First squadron is ready for launch," he reported. "All pilots have completed training on the new systems." On the alien flagship at the edge of the solar system, Admiral Zexathara prepared the enforcement fleet for what should be a simple operation. The coalition had never needed to use force against a developing species, but their laws were clear about protecting primitive worlds from their own foolishness. His forearms moved across the control surfaces as he reviewed the final attack plans. "Begin the approach," he ordered his crew. "Implement standard pacification protocols. Disable their defensive systems, occupy their government centers, and begin immediate integration procedures." The massive alien fleet moved toward Earth, like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Hundreds of ships advanced in perfect formation, their weapons powered but not yet aimed at the small blue world. This was meant to be a show of overwhelming force that would convince humanity to surrender without bloodshed. In the Earth Defense Command Center, Admiral Susan Blake watched the approaching fleet on her tactical displays. The past year had transformed her from a naval officer into the commander of humanity's first space force. Around her, officers from every nation on Earth worked together to coordinate the planet's defense. "They're not scanning us," reported Lieutenant Colonel Pete Harrison from his sensor station. "They're coming in blind, probably expecting us to surrender when we see the size of their fleet." General Mike Torres studied the enemy formation with the eye of someone who had spent decades planning military operations. "They're using a standard intimidation approach," he observed. "Massive force concentrated in a tight formation. It's designed to overwhelm primitive defenses." Dr. Kate Sullivan monitored the quantum communication arrays that connected Earth's defensive systems. Her breakthrough in faster-than-light communications had given humanity a coordination advantage that the aliens didn't expect. "All stations, report ready," she announced. "The network is functioning perfectly." The alien fleet reached the orbit of Mars before Admiral Zexathara noticed something was wrong. His sensors detected energy signatures around Earth that shouldn't exist for a species at humanity's supposed level of development. The readings showed defensive systems that matched coalition technology in some areas and exceeded it in others. "Impossible," he muttered, checking the data again. "They can't have developed that level of technology in just 1 year." His communications officer reported incoming transmissions from the human fleet that was rising to meet them. The ships emerging from Earth orbit were crude by coalition standards, but moved with an agility that defied conventional physics. Their formation suggested tactical knowledge that primitive species shouldn't possess. Captain Roy Davis led the first wave of human ships, his vessel cutting through space with movements that seemed to dance around the alien formation. "They're bigger than us," he reported to Admiral Blake, "but they're flying like they've never faced real opposition before." The first alien scans of the human defensive systems sent shockwaves through the coalition fleet. The energy readings indicated technology that should have taken centuries to develop. Earth's orbital platforms generated power levels that rivaled coalition battle stations, while their shield systems used principles that the aliens recognized, but couldn't quite understand. Dr. Victor Kane had spent the year studying every piece of alien technology left behind by previous visits. The xenobiologist had become humanity's leading expert on coalition science, and his discoveries had revolutionized human understanding of physics. "Every probe they left behind taught us something new," he explained to President Morrison during a secure communication. "They showed us what was possible, and we figured out how to build it ourselves." Admiral Zexathara demanded to know how humanity had achieved such rapid advancement. The answer came during a direct communication between the fleets, broadcast, on frequencies that both sides could understand. President Morrison's voice carried across space with the calm authority that had guided humanity through its darkest hour. "You taught us everything we needed to know," the human leader explained. "Every scan you took of our world, every probe you left behind, every technological demonstration you made during your visits. We learned from all of it. You showed us what was possible, and we figured out how to build it ourselves, but better." The revelation stunned the coalition forces. In their arrogance, they had never considered that a primitive species might learn from their own technology. The probes and scanners they had left behind as simple monitoring devices had become textbooks for human scientists and engineers. Engineer Nancy Rodriguez had led the team that reverse-engineered alien shield technology, then improved it using human innovations in materials science. Commander Tim Johnson had studied alien ship movements to develop new tactics that turned human agility into a decisive advantage. Dr. Kate Sullivan had used alien communication protocols to create a quantum network that gave Earth's defenders perfect coordination. Your rapid development is impossible, Admiral Zex Thera broadcast to the human fleet. No species advances this quickly without outside assistance. President Morrison's response carried a hint of amusement that infuriated the alien commander. You provided the outside assistance when you showed us your technology. We just had to be smart enough to learn from it. The human defensive systems activated as the alien fleet entered Earth's defensive perimeter. Energy shields blazed to life around the planet, creating a barrier of crackling force that could stop anything in the Coalition arsenal. The orbital platforms charged their weapons, displaying power signatures that made even the largest alien ships seem small by comparison. For the first time in their 3,000-year history of expansion, the Galactic Coalition faced an opponent that had turned their own technology against them. The humans had not just learned from alien science, but had improved upon it, creating defensive systems that challenged everything the Coalition thought they knew about technological development. Admiral Zex Thera found himself facing an impossible choice: attack a defensive system that might actually be able to resist Coalition forces, or retreat and admit that the mighty Galactic Empire had been outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The standoff began as both fleets held their positions, each side waiting to see who would make the first move in what had become the most unprecedented confrontation in galactic history. The standoff above Earth lasted for 3 days. Admiral Zex Thera had sent urgent messages to the Coalition Council, reporting the impossible situation that had developed around the human world. For the first time in galactic history, a developing species had not only refused integration, but had become powerful enough to defend that decision with force. Emergency sessions convened across dozens of Coalition worlds as leaders struggled to understand what had happened. The reports from the enforcement fleet defied everything they knew about technological development. Species were supposed to advance slowly over thousands of years, guided by the wisdom of more advanced civilizations. Humanity had shattered that understanding in less than 3 years. Overlord Krenthal himself traveled to the edge of the solar system aboard his personal flagship, a vessel that had intimidated countless worlds into submission. The ancient being studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. The human defensive systems were not just functional, but superior to Coalition technology in several key areas. On Earth, President Jake Morrison held emergency meetings with world leaders as the alien fleet continued its threatening presence near their planet. The successful defense had proven that humanity could stand against galactic civilization, but it had also made them enemies of the most powerful force in the galaxy. Admiral Susan Blake coordinated with her officers as they maintained defensive positions around Earth. The human fleet stayed close to their orbital platforms, using the superior firepower and shields to create an impenetrable barrier. Captain Roy Davis led patrols that demonstrated human ship superiority in speed and maneuverability to any alien vessel that came too close. "They're learning to respect us," General Mike Torres observed from the command center. "But respect based on fear isn't the foundation for a lasting peace." Dr. Kate Sullivan monitored communications between the alien ships, her quantum arrays intercepting Coalition transmissions across multiple frequencies. "They're arguing among themselves," she reported. "Some want to attack, others want to retreat, and a few are suggesting something completely different." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Chancellor Vorth, who had led the second diplomatic mission to Earth, requested permission to establish direct communication with human leadership. His message was broadcast on frequencies that both sides could receive, suggesting that he wanted the entire galaxy to hear what he had to say. "People of Earth," the alien chancellor began, "I wish to propose something that has never been attempted in galactic history. The Coalition has always offered membership or isolation as the only choices available to developing species. You have proven that a third option exists." Admiral Zex Thera tried to cut off the transmission, but other Coalition ships began broadcasting support for Chancellor Vorth's proposal. The enforcement fleet found itself divided as species that had joined the coalition thousands of years ago began to question whether forced integration was truly necessary. "We propose the creation of a new status within galactic civilization," Chancellor Vorth continued. "Independent partnership would allow Earth to maintain full sovereignty while establishing limited diplomatic and trade relations with coalition worlds. You would not be required to adopt our laws or surrender your military, but you would gain access to peaceful interaction with galactic civilization." The proposal sent shockwaves through both fleets. President Morrison consulted with his advisors while coalition commanders debated whether such an arrangement was even legally possible under their ancient laws. Dr. Victor Kane had been studying coalition legal frameworks during the standoff, using intercepted communications to understand how their government actually functioned. "Their laws are designed for a galaxy where the coalition was the only significant power," he explained to President Morrison. "They never planned for the possibility of meeting an equal." Director Alex Turner monitored the alien fleet's movements from his control center, noting that several coalition ships had begun to separate from the main formation. "It looks like they're having their own civil war up there," he reported. "Some ships are supporting the Chancellor's proposal while others are maintaining attack positions." Overlord Krenthal found himself facing a crisis that threatened the foundation of coalition authority. If Earth was granted independent status, other member worlds might demand the same arrangement. The galactic order that had maintained peace for 3,000 years could collapse. But the alternative was worse. Attacking Earth would mean acknowledging that the coalition used force to maintain its empire. For a civilization that prided itself on peaceful expansion, such an admission would be devastating to their moral authority. Admiral Jane Foster had been appointed to lead Earth's diplomatic response during the crisis. The former naval officer found herself negotiating with alien representatives at a hastily constructed space station positioned between the two fleets. The talks were unlike anything in galactic history, as both sides struggled to create a framework for coexistence between equals. "The coalition has never dealt with a species that could refuse their offers and make it stick," she reported to President Morrison during a communication break. "They're having to invent new diplomatic protocols as we go." The final agreement took 2 weeks to negotiate. Earth would become the first independent partner in galactic history, maintaining complete sovereignty while agreeing to limited trade and diplomatic relations with coalition worlds. Humanity would not be required to adopt alien laws or customs, but they would respect coalition territories and shipping lanes. In return, the coalition would recognize Earth's territorial claims throughout the solar system and guarantee protection from hostile forces that might threaten human space. The agreement established humanity as an equal partner rather than a junior member of galactic civilization. President Morrison's final statement to the galactic community became legendary across thousands of worlds. "We never wanted to be alone in the universe," he said during the signing ceremony broadcast to every coalition world. "We just wanted to meet you as equals, not subjects." The consequences of the agreement rippled across the galaxy within months. 17 member species filed formal requests to withdraw from full coalition membership and establish independent partnerships similar to Earth's arrangement. The rigid structure that had governed galactic civilization for millennia began to evolve for the first time. 5 years later, Ambassador Carl Hughes led humanity's first independent diplomatic mission to the Centauri Republic, one of the worlds that had followed Earth's example. The human embassy ship carried trade goods and cultural exchanges that demonstrated the benefits of cooperation between free peoples. The coalition itself had been forced to adapt or face dissolution. Their council chambers now included representatives from dozens of independent worlds, and their laws had been modified to accommodate the reality that some species preferred freedom to security. The age of forced expansion had ended, replaced by genuine cooperation between equals. Earth had achieved something that many thought impossible. They had changed the galaxy not through conquest, but through example. By refusing to surrender their independence, humanity had proven that there were alternatives to submission, and that freedom, while difficult, remained possible for those brave enough to claim it. The human spirit of independence had spread across the stars, carried by species that had learned from Earth's example that even the mightiest empires could be forced to respect the rights of free peoples. The galaxy would never be the same.